I wanted to talk about this, and I really think that this is, we didn't necessarily plan on it, but I think, we're talking about what's good for the sport, what's bad for the sport. I think Conor's really good for the sport, and I wanted to just ask you this, because I have a really good plan for Conor to save his career. What do you think a perfect 2023 would be when Conor comes back? I'm thinking like,
idea.
if you were to devise a plan for Conor McGregor to come back and have a successful year with multiple fights, what would it be?
So for Conor McGregor to succeed in 2023, which is also with the UFC succeeding. So if Conor's succeeding in the UFC succeeding. So the perfect plan for Conor McGregor in the UFC, I would say you book him against Paddy Pimblett. Yeah. That's the first step. You book him against Paddy Pimblett, which is pretty much a tune-up fight. But Paddy's a bigger name. You know what I mean? Paddy wins. They both win in that situation. Paddy, look, he knows, the UFC knows he can't beat these top 15 guys. He can't. You might as well get him a little bit of more hype, let him make a couple million, and then go back to like fighting like bums, and he'll just be a guy like you can put on like any prelim or like any fight night, and people will be like, oh, it's Paddy, maybe I'll watch it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But not rely on him to like be like a superstar. So I think you book him against Paddy Pimblett, easy win for McGregor. That's a big fight. That's over 1 million pay-per-views.
People want to see him get knocked out.
People want to see Paddy get knocked out now. I think people would, if McGregor knocks out Paddy, more people love McGregor. Yeah. Which would be amazing. So I think you book him against Paddy, 155, 170, either one. I think maybe 170, but it doesn't make a difference. He knocks out Paddy first round. I think if McGregor gets an early finish, that's the more likely that he'll fight in the next 6 months or whatever. The quick fight, he'll fight in the next 6 months for sure. So you book against Paddy, then you book him against Justin Gaethje. Yeah. Which is another winnable fight. I think stylistically that's a great match for Conor. Conor will have some momentum going.
I think this one's a little risky.
I think Justin Gaethje. So that's what I think. Yeah. I think you get Justin Gaethje at 170. Okay. Gaethje doesn't have the best gas tank, as we know.
No, he doesn't have the best gas tank.
Imagine what it's going to be like at 170. Yeah. That's a big fight, too.
I like the Conor Pimblett one. I think that's perfect. Right now, Pimblett's name is hot because he just had this big controversial fight. Everyone doesn't like him. There's a lot of people turning on him. He's still, whether you guys want to believe it or not, he's still a relatively big name compared to the average guy in the UFC. So Conor versus Pimblett's great because we saw Paddy Pimblett fail to take down Jared Gordon. He has, of course, dangerous jiu-jitsu, but that's not going to happen. To take Conor down.
He's not going to take down Conor.
And he's not going to be able to strike with Conor. If Jared Gordon's lighting him up, sure, Conor may not be the same guy as he used to be, but he's still going to fuck him up.
Imagine what he's going to do to Paddy Pimblett.
And that's what we want to see. Dude, here's the thing about Paddy. He's still a tough guy, so I could see him getting knocked down, not knocked out cold, having to stand up. And then Conor knocking him down again. You have multiple knockdowns in one fight. That's a big moment. That's highlights. Then he wins.
Imagine.
But here's the thing, dude. I think that here's the thing. If he fights Gaethje next, he could lose. There's a chance. There's a chance he could.
I think he can
get his legs kicked off. Gaethje has tremendous kicks.
But Conor, when he does his Taekwondo stance, he's not susceptible to leg kicks. It was just the boxing stance.
True, and he was looking good. Dustin Poirier did grapple, but
he wasn't. Yeah, Poirier wasn't landing the leg kicks in that fight. Yeah, and he was going heavy on his leg kicks. What if he lights up Gaethje's leg? Gaethje is a traditional boxing.
I didn't know Gaethje ain't gonna shoot.
He never shoots. He never shoots.
Poirier doesn't shoot that often either.
He's
but
not.
I
Gaethje never shoots.
It's not the same grappler.
And I think Poirier, as much as I think Gaethje's has the better takedown defense than Poirier, but I think Poirier in terms of just takedowns, I think he's overall a little better than Gaethje.
Especially in the UFC.
Or at least he shows it more. You know what I mean?
He's a better grappler in MMA. But here's my thing.
So who would you rather him fight instead of Gaethje?
Okay, I would like to see him fight Gaethje. I want to see him fight. I want to see him fight a big guy, but I think it's the better for a third fight.
Okay, I
think because again, I'm thinking of the perfect plan. You destroy Paddy Pimblett. Okay, well, why not take on
Dan Hooker?
Dan Hooker
at 170.
Exactly. That's an easier fight than Gaethje. Dan Hooker's a little old too. Great, Dan Hooker. That's a good fight. Dan Hooker's not a great grappler.
He's not going to grapple,
and he's not as powerful as Conor.
And he's got a weak chin.
He doesn't have the best chin.
What about this?
And then the third fight, give him whoever. At least we have 2 Conor wins in 1 year. That's it, dude. 2 Conor wins in 1 year. A third fight, 3 fights in 1 year.
What about
is massive for the UFC?
You know what I think would also be good?
Yeah.
What if you just do Pimblett, Tony Hooker?
Pimblett, Tony Hooker. I mean, listen, I don't like Tony fighting again, but I don't mind it. I mean, it's fine.
What if Conor gets 3 finishes?
That's what I mean.
Oh, in the first round.
3 finishes.
And then next year, you have him fight Gaethje.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
And Gaethje will be a little older too.
Yeah. And what I've said recently is when Conor McGregor loses at this point in his career,
it's over.
He's gonna take. Imagine if Conor gets knocked out again, or he has a war and takes the damage and then loses at the end. He's taking another 2 years off, and then he's 38, 37 when he comes back. And if he loses then, because again, the 37-year-old Conor will be even worse. He loses then, it's over. He's retiring. So why not get him like the best possible matchups?
Pimblett.
Easy wins. Pimblett, Hooker. And then,
Then you could do Gaethje.
Then Gaethje. Or just Pimblett, Hooker, Tony, and then Gaethje. I'm just saying, because here, Conor loves to fight.
He'd fight. Like, he's ready.
Yeah.
It's just whether the UFC wants, when he's like, does the 6 months of USADA, whatever.
Yeah.
But when do you think Conor's realistically going to come back? I think in the spring.
I think he'll come back in the spring, and I think late spring.
I think like June.
And if he gets the win, like he's a guy who wants to feel good about himself.
He'll come back in August.
Yeah. And I remember him talking about wanting to come back and to have like 3 fights in 1 year when he fought Poirier in the trilogy. He had 2 fights that year, which is still good.
Yeah, that's very good.
But he wanted to have 3. If he beat Poirier the first time, he would have fought again. Then he would have fought again.
No, he would have fought for the belt. If he
would have fought for the belt. That would have been interesting.
Lit.
Yeah.
But I also think Charles Oliveira.
Maybe that could be the third fight.
I don't mind it.
Third fight.
I really imagine if he gets a win against Charles.
If he gets a win against Charles, that's crazy.
And then he could fight Islam. Yeah. Even though he'd lose, that build up would be like amazing.
That builds up his confidence. He wins. He's back in a training camp. He's training seriously all year. He'll get better. That's the best case scenario. But for Conor to come back, I know it's still interesting. For sure, it's interesting him fighting Gaethje, but the repercussions are if he loses, which there's a much better chance of him losing to Gaethje than these other guys like Pimblett or Tony or whatever, or Hooker. If he loses, then he's out and you only get to see him one more time. Because realistically, if Conor loses again, he's only going to have like one more fight
left.
And why, Conor's a once-in-a-lifetime person that the UFC can have. Why not make the most of it? Get him wins, get him to feel good about himself, get him to come back. Because if he feels good about himself, he's more likely to come back earlier.
Yeah, it'll be. I think the UFC is actively trying to figure out who they're gonna book Conor against. I think they're actively trying. Because I think originally,
do you think they care about him getting a win, or do they think?
I think they do.
Are so nearsighted that they just want to see him fight once?
I think they do. I think they wanted to book him against Nate Diaz. That's what they offered Nate.
That would have been decent.
That's what they were trying in the first place.
I think Diaz is harder than Pimblett too.
He's harder, but I think that's a bigger fight.
It's a bigger fight, but Pimblett is perfect.
Pimblett's the easiest.
Thing is, Conor might be too stubborn and too egotistical to fight a guy that's not ranked.
That is true also, but
he could be the guy who's his worst enemy in this situation.
Conor, yeah. So he may want to just fight Gaethje.
But
true. Like that's just not like ideal, like necessarily right away. Like I think Paddy Pimblett, if not Dan Hooker, if not Tony Ferguson. He may want to beat up Tony Ferguson. He doesn't like him.
Yeah.
Like he's got a whole history with Tony. So I think maybe he'd want to beat him up.
Yeah.
Like why do you think they're holding Tony up? Like maybe that's why.
Maybe. I know that people don't want to see tough guys getting easy fights. They don't like to see that. They'll shit on a guy like Paddy Pimblett for fighting cans, in the beginning of his career. But you can never say you'll never be champ to Conor. Like, what are they going to say? You'll never be champion. The guy's been a double champ. And also, in general, like, why not give a star like Conor the same treatment that you would a guy who's new to the UFC? Like, give him easier fights.
He hasn't been fighting in a while.
Give him a build-up. Give him some build-up fights, man. I think that if the UFC
the fans wouldn't have a problem with it. That's the thing. It's just whether Conor wants to do it or not.
Yeah.
I'm sure fans would love Paddy Pimblett versus Conor McGregor.
Dude, they would fucking want to see Conor win.
That's the fight Paddy Pimblett should want also.
That's the fight he should want, because otherwise he's going to fight another guy who's even harder, and he'll lose.
And who's not, or not even necessarily harder. They don't even need to be hard.
To fight Conor. Anyone, even if you think you're going to lose, I'd fucking fight Conor in front of the
money. Just for the money.
Maybe I wouldn't, but fuck it, dude. I mean, why not?
Yeah, no, I think Paddy would be down for the fight too. That's the thing. So I think that's the fight to make you big. Paddy, Dan Hooker, and then Justin Gaethje.
Yeah.
And then if he beats Justin Gaethje, dude, like.
If he beats Gaethje, that's awesome. But I mean, just in general, imagine if he got 3 wins and how big, like.
The next fight won't matter.
How many followers does the UFC have on Instagram right now? Well, let's
Conor
check.
Probably is more than him.
They definitely have more. They definitely have more in general. But I want to see, I'm pretty sure the UFC. They have 35 million. If Conor got 3 wins, they would have 45 million.
Conor is 46 million.
46 million.
So he's got way more than the
and
UFC.
And if the UFC would gain fucking 5 million followers just from Conor fighting. That's
and
3 pay-per-views that are over 1 million. Imagine that.
Winning. Dude, like
they need to do this.
They need to do and I think those are like big fights too. Paddy Pimblett versus Conor is a big fight.
They have to have someone like us sit in front of him who works for the UFC and talk to him about this plan and say, listen, if you win 3 times, they're not going to say you'll never be champ. You've already been champ. You could just come out and say, I'm getting tuned up fights. I'm going to beat these guys up, and then I'm going to have to fight tougher guys. I'm building myself back up. The world wants to see it. Why not do it?
I think anybody would prefer to see that.
Yeah.
You know, like I think Conor versus Tony, that fight would do big. That would do good.
Yeah.
Conor versus Paddy, that would do good. Conor versus Hooker, that would be a big fight. Like any of these fights are huge fights, just because there's a real chance that Conor wins. That's the difference. Like with Conor McGregor, like it's the difference between him and Islam. Like you want it that like you can guarantee he's gonna win. You know what I mean? Because we barely see it anymore. So like,
and there's also a reality to the fact that he could lose too. Like Islam fights, like he's so good. Conor is not that good anymore. Thing about Tony, I feel like sure, fine, but like I just feel like that'd be so easy for him. You think it'd be? You think? I think he'd fucking knock him out in 30 seconds.
But same with Pimblett.
But Pimblett probably still has a better chin than Tony. Pimblett has a good chin.
But he
gets rocked
him up way more.
But
he hasn't gotten hit by a top guy. It's a better guy.
But it'd be a big build up. I like that fight. I think they need to do it, but they won't.
I think Hooker would talk some shit too.
The UFC will not do it. They'll give Conor like Renato Moicano or some shit like that.
No, that's not that bad.
It's not a bad, but it's still like a ranked guy.
Hooker,
the difference between Moicano and Pimblett is still night and day.
Yeah.
Moicano is a grappler. The guy likes to latch on submissions.
He's really good at
Like you don't want Conor to fight a grappler. You want to give him a striker.
That's why Dan Hooker
or a guy with no takedowns.
Dan Hooker's number 10.
Yeah, that's like the easiest. But the thing is, I like the Pimblett because it's like then you build him up even more with the Hooker. 3 wins, that'll be the best.
Pimblett, Ferguson, Hooker,
and then do whatever. Throw him to Habib after. Throw him to Islam. Who cares?
No, but I think
at that point.
You know what I actually think the UFC are gonna do? I think they're gonna give Paddy Pimblett Tony Ferguson.
Tony Ferguson.
I think they may.
Yeah,
I feel like they could.
Fuck that, dude. Paddy Pimblett doesn't deserve that fight. Tony Ferguson
deserves Conor. Yeah. He deserves a Conor fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's get him paid one more time.
Dude, Paddy Pimblett's so shit.
Just imagine that moment. Like, that's a great moment for even if he gets knocked out, Tony, just to retire after getting a huge paycheck from Conor McGregor. Like that's
still good. That's still good.
Even if he does get knocked out, like it's like a positive moment.
Even if he doesn't get knocked out, he still has brain damage nonetheless.
Yeah, but he's gonna get a nice paycheck before he retires.
For sure.
Oh, he can hang up the gloves after losing to Conor in like a huge fight. Like I think that's a proper way to retire for Tony. I just don't want them to give Paddy Pimblett.
Here's the thing. I think Conor likes Pimblett. I think they like each other. I think they respect each other.
I know, but
I think that's why they're not going to fight.
That's so stupid.
But Paddy wants to fight him. I feel like Conor would just
smoke him.
Conor should fight him. Like
someone should
convince
insulted.
Conor, fight Pimblett. People would want to see you win. Even the people that don't like you would want to see you win.
I think more people hate Paddy.
More people definitely.
I think everyone. I don't think Paddy has any fans anymore.
And at this point, even though at one point, a lot of people wanted Conor to lose his fights, but I think more people are cool with winning. Yeah. He's old.
He's big straw, like the biggest draw ever. Yeah, I think Ferguson. Paddy, Ferguson, Hooker, or Paddy, Hooker, Gaethje. That I want to see Paddy, Conor. I want to see Hooker, Conor. I want to see Gaethje, Conor. That's the 3. Ferguson, it's kind of you know he's old. He should retire. I think those other guys, what's more. A win over Hooker is more impressive than a win over Ferguson. Yeah. At this point.
Oh yeah.
I think
a win over Pimblett's more impressive.
Or considered more impressive. You know? I don't know if a win against Ferguson really does much. I don't think it does much for the fans. Fans aren't gonna be like, oh, Conor's back with a win against Ferguson. You know. Yeah. I think if he knocks out Dan Hooker.
Yeah, people will think
he's back. Conor's back, baby. You know, or especially if Hooker gets a fight before that too and he wins. Yeah. You put Hooker against a guy who's decent and gets a win, Conor, that fight's way better. You know what? You know why I actually think that they put Hooker at number 10 is for the fact that he may be an option for Conor.
Maybe.
I think that could be why.
He doesn't deserve to be in the rankings right now.
No, but
imagine if Conor fought Paddy in
May
in Vegas and then Conor fought Hooker in Dublin. Do a Dublin pay-per-view. That'd be huge.
That would be massive. Hooker, yeah. Then you could do Ian Gary
but
on it.
What are the chances that they actually do anything like this?
I feel like they may do Gaethje. I feel like that's just what they're going to end up doing. I think they're going to end up just giving him Gaethje, and there's going to be a real chance he loses.
If he loses, then it's all fucked.
Yeah, I just don't know if he's going to end up signing. I think his stubbornness is going to end up getting to him.
Maybe.
That's what I'm predicting. I think it's going to be Gaethje, but I want it to be Pimblett, of course, and then Hooker, and then Ferguson or Gaethje at the end. Like so.